13-year Major League pitcher Scott Feldman joins us today.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I am your host, Booney. Episodes will drop Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. That's Oakland time, Vegas time, and Sacramento time. Whether you are on your way to work, driving back from work, or just listening casually during the day. I'm from the Bay Area, and I've been a diehard fan since 1981. I'm here to bring you a real fan's take, covering everything from Oakland to Sacramento to Las Vegas. This is the place for A's fans to get the latest game breakdowns, team news, and more. This is where the passion of the fans take center stage. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. And please hit that subscribe button wherever you are following the show. This episode is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Scott Feldman pitched on baseball's biggest stage and was one strike away from bringing the Texas Rangers to a 2011 World Championship in Game 6 of the World Series. That night, he gave up the game-tying hit and came up just short. A career spanning 13 years in the big leagues was far from short. He didn't have a fastball that blew you away, nor was his spin rate at a level where a scout would take a look. But Scott Feldman knew how to pitch. He knew how to get guys out, and he competed every time he took the mound. Today, I got a chance to sit down with Scott. He takes us through a journey of a lifetime in baseball, from his early days at the College of San Mateo to being drafted by the Texas Rangers. Scott opens up about the experience of facing some of the league's toughest hitters. He reflects on whether a player like him would still have the same chances in today's analytics-driven game. We also dig into some of baseball's biggest changes, from player development in lower market teams like the Oakland A's to the rise of sabermetrics and bullpen games. Scott gives listeners a rare view of how baseball has evolved and the lasting impact these shifts have on players, teams, and fans alike. Where do you start with a pro like Scott? Why not draft day, where he went in the 30th round? Scott Feldman.
You know, to be honest, I think I remember the day being pretty disappointed when it came around, and my name never got called on that first day. But we made the most of it. I had a bunch of friends at my house, and I mean, back then it was like on the dial-up internet, and we were just kind of having a couple Bud Lights and having a good time. And next thing I know, I think it was like the following day I got drafted. So it ended up working out really well, though. I couldn't have asked for a better situation where getting drafted by the Rangers and just kind of moving up the ladder rather quickly. So it worked out really well.
Were you getting recruited by colleges at all at the time?
Yeah, that was a fun process. Out of high school, I didn't have any scholarship offers, so I went up to CSM, and then after my freshman year, I had pretty much a scholarship offer to anywhere that I could have dreamed of going. So I was going on some visits here and there. And I think after my second or third one, I decided I was going to sign with Tennessee, the Volunteer. Okay. So yeah, I was headed there. And then when the Rangers called and we worked out a signing bonus, I decided that sounded better than going to college. So
everyone talks right now about Major League Baseball player development. You made your debut, I believe, with the Rangers. I think you were at 22, 23 years old.
Yeah, I was 22. Yeah.
22 years old. Do you think if you went to Tennessee, played your junior and senior year at Tennessee, then got drafted, you would have been the same type of pitcher?
I think about that actually quite a bit because I don't even know if I would have gotten drafted again because I ended up needing Tommy John surgery pretty much right after I signed, so age 20. So I would have been doing that whole rehab deal in college, and you never know how those things could turn out. So, I mean, it can definitely have, if you're injured and you need Tommy John surgery, just taking that year off and getting like a reset on your whole body and your mind and your arm can be very helpful. But I hear parents, all the time with little kids like 12, 13, 14 that think, oh, if they get Tommy John, they're going to come back and throw harder. And that is not the case. I just want to make that clear right away. That is not the case. So try to avoid going under the knife at any cause, right? But
yes,
it ended up working out well for me, and it's such a science that they have it down to now with this Tommy John. So most of the time, you do end up coming back and being able to continue on with your career.
You made the jump pretty quick. You went from Double-A to the bigs. Was that a bit of a surprise for you? I mean, you were pitching well in Double-A, but was that a surprise for you to get called up, or did you see that coming?
I mean, I really wanted to get called up. I mean, it was like all I could think about. I was obsessing about, making it to the major leagues since, probably college really kicked off. But really, when you get a taste of that minor leagues, that was my whole desire was just on trying to keep advancing and making my way up there. So I thought about it nonstop, and I wasn't shocked because I realized that I kind of thought that I would get an opportunity at some point. I didn't know whether I would have to go through, single A, double A, triple A. But when that phone call came, I was definitely pretty excited and, something I'll never forget.
Now, when you look at how prospects are evaluated today and you look at yourself back then, I mean, your stuff wasn't necessarily overpowering. You had a lot of movement to your ball. You threw a heavy ball, sinker ball pitcher. Location was a big deal. Do you think if you came up in today's game, the way that scouts are evaluating players, you would be in the same position?
That's tough to say. I don't think I would actually, because I think what they've sort of done with baseball in a lot of ways is they've turned it into like the NFL combine, right? Like how fast can you throw? What's your spin rate? That kind of stuff, rather than can you get guys out? Can you locate the ball where you want it? Can you make the ball move? Can you go out there and compete? What's this guy's makeup? How does he prepare for games? What kind of teammate is he? All that kind of stuff. So I think those intangibles that were really, really harped on and important back when I was learning the game and coming up have kind of gotten forgotten. And that's a sad thing. But at the same time, I think that pendulum can swing both ways. And I think we're starting to see, hopefully, that old school stuff kind of come back into the game. Like you're seeing Bruce Bochy just won the World Series last year again with the Rangers. You got they got a baseball guy, Chris Young, running the show there.
Yes.
Buster Posey just kind of came back in and took over for the Giants. So that kind of stuff I think is great. And then you see with the 2 World Series teams, even they got Dave Roberts, who played for a long time, and obviously Aaron Boone. So running those 2 dugouts. So I think it's great, and I hope that we get back to that kind of stuff. I think that's what baseball is all about. That's what makes it so fun.
If you were getting drafted today, would you rather get drafted by a small market team where you have a chance of getting called up sooner, or a big market team where you're with a reputable organization, a great organization, but the big team is pretty stacked?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I think as a kid, we all dream about making it to the major leagues, right? So
yeah.
So in my case, I benefited from not having a very strong major league team when I was coming up through the minors. So it gave me an opportunity pretty early on to stick my nose in there and get a shot. I would like to think that I could have made it to the major leagues on a good very
Sure.
well stacked
Yeah.
first place team or something like that. But I definitely think it was easier for me because of, the fact that we weren't that good at the time. But that being said, I think first and foremost, you just want to get to the major leagues and then let all that other stuff take care of itself. So I would, whatever got me to the big leagues the quickest is what I would probably try for, and hopefully stick around there for a long time.
This episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Hitting's changed a lot. I mean, when you first came up in 2005, the average major league hitter was hitting 269. Today, their average major league hitter is 243. First and foremost, as a pitcher who has pitched in the bigs and at all levels for so many years, what makes a hitter tough to face?
I think there's a number of things that can make pitching difficult, but you get those superstar guys, the Mike Trouts, the Miguel Cabreras, the Derek Jeters, those type of guys. They're never going to give away an at bat. You know what I mean? So they really make you grind and work and throw strikes and throw the ball over the plate. They're not going to chase out of the zone too much. So I think that a combination of, a patient hitter, but also obviously somebody that puts some fear in you because they can hit the long ball. And there were a number of those guys for me over the years, trust me. Like anybody that's in the Hall of Fame, I probably didn't do too well against. They used to lick their chops against me. I would say Mike Trout gave me a really tough time always. He was a low ball hitter, and I used to throw a lot of sinkers. So Miguel Cabrera, I think I've already mentioned those two guys, but a guy that I haven't mentioned and was a longtime A's player, little under the radar, but Jack Cust used to just give me.
Oh, really?
I mean, guy give me nightmares, man. Yeah, he hit a number of home runs off me, and he always had a really good eye, and I think he saw the ball really well off me for whatever reason. But yeah, that was my guy. Jack Cust used to just terrorize me.
What hitter do you think would be easier to pitch to? The modern era hitter, or because it's two different? I believe it's two different approaches to hitting. Hitting's changed significantly now.
Yeah. I think it probably depend on how good my stuff was that day. I think nowadays you got to be able to strike guys out. You got to be able to get guys to swing and miss a lot more. Whereas when I was pitching, weak contact was a thing that we were taught early on, to try to get. I remember being in the minor leagues, 3 pitches or less was what they wanted to get. They wanted us to try to get a guy out in 3 pitches or less, weak contact, that kind of thing. So being that that's what I knew, and that's kind of how I came up through the minor leagues, I would choose that way. I loved pitching when I pitched. I think I would have liked to pitch even more like in the 80s, 90s, like back in the day. But yeah, it was a lot of fun pitching when I pitched. I mean, we had really good camaraderie. The guys, go out to dinner, go out, get a couple drinks after the game. It just seemed like things were a little bit different back then, Nowadays, I haven't been involved with big league baseball since 2017. So that's been a while, but I even saw towards the end of my time playing there, things were starting to change a little bit. And, things like having beer in the clubhouse after a game was kind of looked at as like, that's probably not a good idea. So the camaraderie and the time that guys spent in the clubhouse together talking about baseball and stuff was starting to dwindle down. And, I think that's just stuff that was really special and memories that I'll always cherish and think about. So
you probably know this question more than most because you've been exactly in that situation. We saw in game 1 of the World Series, Garrett Cole got pulled after 6 innings, 88 pitches, even though he was absolutely dominating. And pitch count right now is a huge deal, obviously. And we're seeing more and more bullpen games than we have ever seen them. In 2011, you were dominant in that in the playoffs. I believe your first 10 2/3 innings, you struck out 10, didn't allow a walk, no runs, 4 hits. Are these bullpens getting gassed over a postseason period of time?
They may be. I think they do a really good job of monitoring how many pitches guys are throwing and kind of what their workloads are. But yeah, I was watching that game too on game 1 with Garrett Cole. And I'm sitting there rooting for the Yankees. You can't root for the Dodgers growing up in the Bay Area, right?
Sure, right. Yeah, me and you both.
I was like, damn, come on, leave them in there. But, I think there's certain guys and Cole's usually one of those guys where they let them just kind of have at it, throw 115, 120 pitches. But that definitely used to be a lot more common. And I think that, yeah, if you're going to continuously just throw your bullpen out there and not give them the proper rest that they need, obviously – by the time the World Series rolls around or the postseason rolls around, sure, they're going to be getting a little taxed. Absolutely.
We hear a lot about the third time through the lineup. The analytics says it's a big deal. You've been there. Is it a big deal?
I mean, when I was playing, we didn't even think about that stuff. It was just like, you don't want to show them your full arsenal, maybe the first at bat or second at bat, but because you knew maybe, later in the game, you don't want them to see everything you've got. But I think now from the get-go, it's just get these guys out however you can. It's max effort. If you got to throw all your pitches, if you got to, blow it out, throw 100 pitches through 5 innings, 4 innings, whatever it may be, just try to put zeros on the board. And we got guys in the bullpen that are going to come in and throw 100 miles an hour. So it didn't used to be like that. It used to be really embarrassing. And, I felt terrible if I didn't go at least 6 innings. And there were definitely plenty of times where I went 4 innings, 5 innings, 3 innings, and, you're hanging your head and you hate that. But I think nowadays it's just a little bit more, it's not as big of a deal. They've got guys in the bullpen that are going to cover for you. And the guys in the bullpen are so good now. You never had 8, 9 guys on a team that could throw 100 miles an hour, 97 miles an hour. It's just crazy the amount of talent that's out there.
Let me ask you this. So I grew up in a time like you, when you judged a team based on, can a pitcher get a batter out, and if hitters can get hits, and if you can feel the ball, and if the players on the same team liked each other, there was some sort of chemistry involved in it. That type of thinking now seems ancient, and teams are being assembled based on, what we've heard a lot, the sabermetrics and the analytics. In this game of sabermetrics, analytics are obviously in-game beyond important, but is assembling teams when we are looking at the player as a statistic instead of the player themselves? Maybe I'm naive. I don't know.
No,
but are individuals in running baseball, are they getting it right? Or,
I think it's like with anything. If you have all of sabermetrics or you have all of just, going with your gut and just pure scouting, I think you're probably doing yourself a disservice and doing your team and your fans a disservice. So you probably want a hybrid of some sort, in my opinion. I mean, I think when you look at the teams that have had the most success over the last, 10 or 15 years, none of them are all one way or all the other way. They might have really good front office in this area, but they've also got the camaraderie. They've also got the players that are putting together tough at bats and not striking out, 250 times, that kind of stuff. So I think, right, like you got to have both. You don't want all of one way or all of the other way. I think you're probably going to be missing out.
I was listening to another podcast the other day, and he made a good point. And if you look at baseball today, there's really no aces, right? I mean, Garrett Cole would be one, but I mean, if you look at the Dodgers team, do they have that one ace? Skubal would be one with Detroit, but for the most part, Major League Baseball teams don't have that one ace. His theory is that owners no longer want to pay aces those type of contracts, So they have completely eliminated that conceptual thinking of being an ace. Do you think there's any type of validity to that?
Yeah, I mean, I could go down a whole like conspiracy theory with you if we had more time, but yeah, I definitely do. I think that a lot of the reason why front offices and general managers have shifted away from traditional baseball guys into this more analytics and statistical analysis type guys, mathematician guys, is exactly that, just to manage the payroll for the owners. And I think they've tried to come up with a formula to minimize payroll for the ownership. And what it's sort of done, unfortunately, is now you're only getting these superstar guys with the big contracts, which is great. But for everybody else, it's tougher to, last 10 years in the league and make a significant contract. Where it used to be, I think, a lot more common for, a starting pitcher to pitch in that 180 to 220 innings mark. You're really not seeing that from anyone except for the elite guys now. So it's kind of tough to watch the 162 games now as a fan, I'm sure, just because there's not really the same level of consistency with the product that you're watching, right? Like, maybe they got one or two starting pitchers that, are going to go 6-7 innings on a given night, but you get the bullpen games and you get the opener and it's just a lot different. And maybe I'm just old now and salty or whatever, but I swear baseball was better when you had guys that you tuned in as a kid and you knew who the roster was. I can still name the lineup from all kinds of different teams, from different years when I was a kid. And I just don't think you have that anymore.
This episode is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. For me, I personally love Prize Picks. They have tons of choices and options for every single game. It is very easy to deposit, and when you have a winning day, it is very simple to withdraw. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which players aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Game 4 of the World Series this evening, and I am going against the grain. I like Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman to go less than hits plus runs plus RBIs. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play. Prize Picks, run your game. Your debut of being a World Series pitcher was facing Pujols, Holiday, and Berkman.
Yeah, that's right. Gosh, I mean, the only thing I could really compare it to would be like a major league debut,
Is that right?
The excitement and the nerves and all the good adrenaline and all that kind of stuff. So, it's something, even just pitching in the regular old postseason was like that too.
Postseason pitching, you were dominant. What was different about pitching in the postseason than in the regular season?
I think just being in that environment, it forces you to kind of lock it in to an extra level, and you got a little extra adrenaline. So even though it's September, October, and your arm might not feel that well, or your body's not feeling that well, you're kind of tired, the fans screaming and everybody watching the game and stuff and being so intense. You feel like you're 15 again, you feel amazing. It's definitely a different vibe for sure. Yeah.
So you were part of one of the most iconic World Series games ever. Game 6, bottom 10, Rangers were up 9-7, up 3-2. There was 1 out, runners at first and third. Ryan Theriot comes up. You get him to ground out softly to third. So 2 outs. Pujols coming up with Berkman on deck. Was there any type of debate whether to pitch to Pujols and rather than Berkman, considering it's righty on righty? And Berkman was a killer left-handed hitter.
Yeah, no, they're both. I mean, it was like pick your poison, right? Those guys are both unbelievable hitters. And to be honest with you, I'm glad it was a decision that I didn't have to make. They make that decision in the dugout. I'm sure they may have discussed it back and forth, but ultimately the decision was made to walk Pujols. I mean, he had a game earlier in that series where he hit 3 home runs and
he was a killer.
Yeah, killer. They both were. And so, yeah, I mean, Berkman and I, we had a long at bat, and it was a tough thing for me to deal with. The aftermath of that, just knowing like, man, if I would have got that guy out, we would have won the World Series, And so
he didn't hit it hard. It was a soft single to center.
It was a good at bat. I honestly, I've never actually gone back and watched that game. Just because, I just still, I got a bad taste in my mouth still to this day. I was so happy when they won the World Series last year, just to kind of give those fans because gosh, we should have won that. But
that was a hell of a series.
It was a hell of a series. But looking back at it, I mean, I was trying to throw cutters up and into him. That was kind of the book on him, and I had a good cutter at the time. And I know that last pitch was not up and in; it was more middle in or middle down. So it happens, and just got to tip your cap to the hitter sometimes and hope that it doesn't come up in a situation like that.
Postseason pitching, you were dominant. What was different about pitching in the postseason than in the regular season?
I think just being in that environment, it forces you to kind of lock it in to an extra level, and you got a little extra adrenaline. So even though it's September, October, and your arm might not feel that well, or your body's not feeling that well, you're kind of tired, the fans screaming and everybody watching the game and stuff and being so intense. I mean, you feel like you're 15 again, you feel amazing. It's definitely a different vibe for sure. Yeah. So I think it was just probably the most memorable time of baseball for me in my whole life. So, hopefully one of these days I'll be able to go back and look at it and, get some joy out of it. But it was a tough deal.
Now, when you ended your career, did you know it was over, or were your skills deteriorating, or when did you know that it was kind of a wrap?
I mean, from a pain standpoint, I just could not play anymore, but like a physical pain standpoint. But it's funny, like that last year that I played, I actually felt like I was getting better.
With the Reds, right? Yeah.
Better than I was, 4 years ago or something. But the final stats on that year will not say that, because as my injury got worse.
What was your injury?
I had bone on bone in my right knee, so I was having to get it drained in between starts, and it was a painful deal. But so no, I didn't know it was my last game. I knew when I threw my last game of the season that year, it was going to be my last game of the season, and I needed some time to try and rehabilitate my knee. But it was a funny game. I was driving to the field, and it was in Wrigley, and I could, there's all these stories where you look at the lake, and if the lake's choppy, it's a bad sign it's a bad day to be a pitcher.
Is that right?
Blowing out. I mean, the wind was probably blowing out harder than, I had ever seen it. And I pitched for the Cubs before too. So it was just kind of the perfect storm. And I gave up, I think, 5 home runs, and, kind of walked off the mound, and I said, that might've been it. And if that is it, that's kind of a funny way to end.
Thoughts and takes on the A's leaving Oakland, going to Vegas, going to Sacramento first?
I think it's sad, honestly. I mean, I wish that, because when the A's are good, they have a great fan base. The people show up, and they're very passionate. And a lot of my early memories of baseball was watching the A's when they were so good when I was a little kid. My grandpa,
Bash Brothers, and now
the Bash Brothers, and my mom grew up in the East Bay, so my grandpa used to take me to A's games sometimes. And it's a sad deal that they have to leave. And just the whole what's going on in Oakland is kind of sad, honestly. Like the last few times I've driven through there, it's tough to see.
You've been a free agent a couple times in your career. Would a major league team that's going to a minor league ballpark like the A's are affect your decision if they offered you, let's say, a contract?
Yeah, I think in most cases it probably wouldn't, but since it's the A's doing it and kind of knowing like the way that they sort of like have treated the players in the past and kind of not investing in the ball club and not investing in the way the players are treated and fed at the field and the way that their locker rooms have been, flooded with sewage for, numerous times, and just kind of hearing different things about the ownership group and stuff. I don't think I would want to do that, but maybe if the contract was good enough, I guess anybody would probably consider it.
Almost 20 years playing baseball through college, through the big leagues, all the teams, all the memories. What are things that kind of stick out, even going back to JUCO, through minors, through the big leagues, etc.? Are there certain things when you think about playing baseball that flash back?
Yeah, for sure. I think back all the way back to, Little League and thinking about, the relationships that all my friends and I were able to build over the years. Like we all grew up together and we all just kind of stuck around the area, and none of us ever went and played on these travel ball teams. We all just kind of stuck in the local area and played baseball together. We went, 4th of July tournaments or whatever it was. And we had some great coaches. A few of the dads were huge and dedicated a ton of their time to helping us, not only their time, but also just, teaching us the right way to play and the right attitude to have. And they weren't sitting there yelling at the umpires and doing stuff like that. They were there for us to have a good time. And, I think that that's something that hopefully we can kind of get back to. I know now a lot of kids are doing all this travel ball and they're only playing one sport, and everybody's taking it so serious. When you're just a kid, you want to just go out there and have some fun and play as many sports as you can, get as many experiences as you can, build some of those friendships. So for me, that's something that I will never forget is that early, age 5 through 16, 17, 18. And then obviously had the chance to play in junior college with some great guys that a lot of them I'm still really good friends with. And the whole experience was wonderful. I mean, I feel super lucky that I chose a profession that I actually enjoyed and was good enough to make a living off of it.
We appreciate you making today's episode of Locked On A's your first listen of the day. For your second listen, be sure to check out Locked On MLB Podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with your pal Sully, who has it all covered every single day. Click here to listen now. Don't forget that between these episodes, you can keep up with me and your A's by following on social media at Locked On A's. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the Locked On A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.